Up on how Bahia appears in the work of our two writers here tonight. The next question is for everybody, including the translators and critics and writers. How would you characterize contemporary Bahian writing, and how does it differ from the aesthetic production emerging from other cultural capitals of Brazil, for example, Rio and São Paulo?
I'll have a go with that, mostly because these are pretty hard questions. I think I'll have a better shot at this first one. I teach Brazilian literature at Vanderbilt, and I can tell you that our students are uniformly interested in what they describe as the originality and the energy of contemporary writing out of Bahia. Sometimes we have long discussions about why those characteristics seem to be so closely associated with some of the very new writing that's coming out of Bahia. And it seems that inevitably we always come back to the questions of history, which I teach courses in literary history, Brazilian literary history, so that probably accounts for some of it. But I think there is the issue of Bahian history that does drive a lot of the new narrative, but it's the most interesting confluence of history and a very clear-eyed vision of what we sometimes think of as the 21st century, which is really an exciting thing, and a lot of our students pick up on that. I certainly feel that that's got to be somehow part of what makes contemporary Bahian writing so unique. I will leave it for my colleagues and friends here, the experts, to try to distinguish that sort of thing from the other cultural capitals in Brazil, Rio, for example, or Sao Paulo. We get into this discussion pretty often in my classes, and I have more luck directing those questions under more controlled circumstances. So I'll leave that to my colleagues.
Okay, maybe we can hear from Greg on this one.
I'm a little bit puzzled about how I will approach the word contemporary, because of late I don't feel that I am a contemporary. And then also in the question of Bahia, my roots in Bahia, academic roots, intellectual roots, go back so far, because the first Bahian that I began to study, he was Bahian by adoption. He was born in Portugal, but he came to Bahia at the age of 6, and he was the first one, I think, to prove that old dictum that Baiano burro nasce morto was Padre Vieira, Padre Antonio Vieira, who actually was Bahian in the fact that he was formed in the old colonial city. Then as I would go along, I would find other interesting characters. One that always fascinated me was my namesake Gregory Rabassa, the poet. I dabbled trying to translate some of his poetry, which I found to be impossible, but I did make an attempt at it, and I couldn't really get what he was saying. I would, if I wanted to translate him into modern parlance first, I would call upon Jorge Amado to take his poem and then put it into modern Bahian, and then I might have a chance to translate it better with my little Encyclopedia do Palavrão sitting next to me, which I found. I'm speaking this way right now because I'm just about finishing the translation of Jorge's last novella about the discovery of America by the Turks. Turks meaning Turcos. So I don't know about what there is distinctive about the Bahians, but it's there, and I find it in the writing mostly of the contemporaries of the 20th century more than the 21st. I'm not so much up on this century of ours that we've entered, but I'm rather expert on the 20th, having lived almost all of it. I want to take Jorge Amado as the example of the Bahian who is not a member of that group of urban writers, because he does come from the state of Bahia, from the south. Grapiuna, he's a Grapiuna from southern Bahia, Itabuna, and those Ilhéus, those cities to the south. But he adapted to Salvador. And then I think you can see from that that the city of Bahia, Salvador da Bahia, really gave the whole state its spirit. Because I find very little difference between, in the works of Jorge, when he is doing a rustic novel from the Cacao region, and when he's doing one of the streets of Bahia, of Salvador, the Ladeiras, which live in both places, the spirit that is there, the jeito that the Bahians have. Different, I think, from the Cariocas, for example, the writers from Rio. We have the great ones there, like Machado de Assis, who was perfect example of what the Carioca was, what the Rio mentality was, and yet you do find something that is missing in his work that is present in certain form, in a sense, with these Bahian writers. I'm not sure what it is. I'll have to wait for Nostalgia Veda to come to me and tell me what it is. But I think it's a hard word. I hate to talk about folksiness. I don't like that word. I come from a time when people were people and not folks. But there is a natural quality in Bahia that comes from the way they lived and their relationships. That is different from the other cities. I leave out São Paulo because don't forget São Paulo is inhabited by so many migrants from these Pau-de-Araras who came down from the north and others. So I'm put to a problem when I try to think of what does make a Bahian style. But I do know it is here. I was interested in hearing a great deal here about Candomblé and the Santeria in Bahia, which I think where it is strongest and where I think it is most genuine. That is perhaps in Bahia, the people are closer to their roots than in the other cities. But I'm really nonplussed at the question. I don't know that I can answer it.